Good evening again. This is Dolores Cannon with the Metaphysical Hour, and we're back live again tonight. This is the continuing, I guess you would call, series that I'm doing. I've been interviewing the ones who are going to be the speakers for our conference. I've been doing that for the last month. So we're trying to get them all where they could get practice. And, you know, our conference is the 4th Transformation Conference, and it's going to be in Bentonville, Arkansas, June the 12th to the 14th. And our keynote speaker is Helen Brady, who is coming all the way from Australia. And we're real excited about that. And we have lots of wonderful speakers. Most of the ones who are speaking are authors that our company has published. And they all have these wonderful books, and that's why we're trying to get them interviewed so they can get a little practice before they go on for the conference. So the author tonight is Karen Peebles, and she's written a book about a rather controversial subject. And when I first saw the manuscript, I make the one that reads all the manuscripts that are submitted, and we get hundreds and hundreds of manuscripts. I read them all, and I'm the one that makes the decision on what we're going to publish. When I first read it, I was thinking, is this going to be a down type of subject, but a negative one? But really it's not. After I read the manuscript, I said, this is something that people really need to know about. So the subject tonight is suicide. Karen has written a really good book called The Other Side of Suicide. So we're going to be talking to her about how this all came about and what really happens to you when you go over on the other side after something like this. Okay, Karen, you're there, aren't you?
Yes, I'm here.
I know you said you're a little nervous because you're not very accustomed to doing these kind of things.
Well, I'll get through it.
Oh, you will. You'll do fine. I know you will. It's just like having a conversation with me anyway. Okay, but first, Karen, I want you to tell people about yourself.
Well, I'm a 43-year-old mother of 2. I'm recently widowed. About a year ago, my husband passed away from cancer, and I live in mid-Missouri, which is really beautiful here. I've lived here for about 3 years.
Uh-huh. See, I live on a mountain down here in Arkansas. We're not very far apart.
Oh, it's beautiful down there where you are.
Uh-huh. It's the same. We like to be out in the country. Or you live out in the country?
Yes, I do.
Uh-huh. That's the best place, I think. I want to get away from the energy of the cities.
Oh, I love bringing up my kids in the country. They're very happy here.
Uh-huh. Oh, I just happened to think, before we go any further, let me give out the number in case anybody wants to call in during the show tonight, and then we'll jump back on what we were talking about. If anyone does want to call in and ask questions tonight, the toll-free number is 1-888-815-9756. 1-888-815-9756. And they said this is a new number that you probably don't have. Okay, I'm sorry, Karen.
Oh, that's
but
okay.
Anyway, you're living out there with just the 2 kids then.
Yes.
But tell me a little more about your life. Did you ever work or have an occupation or anything?
I used to short order cook.
Get background.
I was a short order cook for probably 15 years, and I traveled around the country cooking and seeing the country and just enjoying life. And then I married and had 2 children, and I've been a mother now for about 12 years.
Uh-huh. So anyway, pretty ordinary life, So what happened since then with the book has kind of been very different and extraordinary, isn't it?
Yes, it is. It's been very strange for me.
Uh-huh. So, well, let's I guess you like you said, you're just as ordinary as everybody else out there. There's nothing really different or special about you.
No, there's nothing special
Except
about me.
you had this communication with the other side, really, didn't you?
Yes, that's just been happening for about 3 years now, and it's very strange for me.
Let's tell everybody how it first came about.
Well, About 3 years ago, I was getting ready for bed. I was tucking myself in and just getting ready to go to sleep like any other night. And my Uncle George, who had killed himself about 28 years ago, just started talking to me. And that is just as strange a thing as you can imagine it to be. And
in your head or what?
No, just
you were
right
hearing
out
him
loud.
In your head or what?
I could hear him just like any other person that I could hear speaking. And I recognized his voice right away, and I knew that it was him. And he asked me if I would help him to write a book about suicide. And I was really
What
startled.
did you think when you first started hearing it?
I thought, what an unusual happening this is. And in life, when he was alive, we were not very close. He was a very loud and obnoxious truck driver, and we were not close in life. So I was not really thrilled to be hearing him talk to me. And I told him that I did not want to write this book with him. And he just kept right on talking and talking until 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. He would not shut up until I finally got up and went and got a notebook and a pencil, and I started to write down what he was saying. And what he was saying was quite beautiful. I really couldn't resist.
Well, did you wonder at that time, why me? Why did you pick me?
I still wonder that, yes. I still wonder.
Well, there was one question. I don't know if it was ever answered in the book or not, but how did George kill himself?
Well, he shot himself in the head, and I have asked him recently why he did this, why he ended his life early, and he explained to me that he was getting older and he had lost his job and he was losing his eyesight and his health was failing him, and he just felt as though life was not in his control any longer. And so it was his attempt to take a situation completely out of his control and just gain some control over it, was how he explained it to me.
But we know that really isn't what happens, though, is it?
No.
They think they're going to have, control, but that's not really what goes on,
Correct.
But, so anyway, he began dictating this to you?
Yes, he started telling me about the place where the souls of suicide victims go after they've committed suicide. And the way that he spoke about it, it was just so beautiful. He described it as just a nurturing, healing place where the character is just completely rebuilt from the inside out. Just a place of healing and rest where they go. And it was just so beautiful that I really couldn't say no at that point.
Those are the beginnings of what he was telling you about.
Yes.
Because, I know one thing that the church is always trying to tell people that they commit suicide, they're condemned, they're doomed, and they go into purgatory. And in my 40 years of working in this field, I've never found that to be true.
Is that right?
There is no condemnation,
I was raised Catholic, and I was raised to believe all of those things you had just said, where if you commit that act, you are doomed. And I just can't believe that anymore.
But this was your mindset when all this started happening, wasn't it?
Yes, it was.
Uh-huh. Okay, but let's talk a little bit about what he told you, what it was like over there.
Well,
what happens whenever the soul, commits suicide and goes over there?
He told me that when the soul first crosses over, there is a transitional period where the soul understands that what they have just done is very final, and the transitional period is very brief, but it's very intense for the soul, where they realize they cannot get back into their body even though they're trying to, and they realize the grief that they have brought upon their family and friends and loved ones. And even while this is happening, before they even know it, there are just a multitude of hands that are reaching for them to nurture them and heal them and wrap them in protective love and carry them to this place of healing that he calls the Emerald City. which I think is just beautiful. And I asked him why he calls this place the Emerald City, and he told me that the walls and the streets of the city glow green from the healing energies that are being exchanged there. And he has just
it sounds like the Wizard of Oz, doesn't it?
It does. It does. But he said it's just a wonderful place of healing.
Well, I think you said in the book, too, that as soon as the spirit does commit suicide and are out of the body, they're really immediately trying to get back in because they realize they made a mistake.
That's
that
what
true?
He said. Yes, he said that happens. From what he said, that happens to everyone who commits suicide. There's just an instant recognition of what they have done and a feeling of regret on their part.
Then they start, realizing what the effect it's going to have on other people,
yes.
the family and everything.
Yes.
But this is what I've found in my work, too, that they are met by very loving spirits and souls, that it's their job to take care of them and take them where they're supposed to go. Isn't that true?
That is exactly what he said to me. He said that there are these other high spirits, he called them, who have dedicated a portion of their work to helping these confused souls who are crossing over.
Because, well, see, I've run across these same things in my work. That was one of the reasons why I wanted to publish the book, because there was nothing contradictory in what I found. But I was told, too, that the spirits who work with these people, it is in a very special place, but the ones who work with them have to be a very highly evolved type of spirit, because it takes great patience to make any kind of progress when you're working with a disturbed soul like that.
I imagine that's true. He also told me that there are many children that are in this Emerald City, and the children have a special way of nurturing and healing them that the adult spirits don't have, which I found very interesting.
Uh-huh. Because of their innocence, or what?
I don't think he elaborated on that, but I imagine that would be why.
But these would be the spirits of children who have died.
Well, I think so.
Is that what you mean?
Yes, I think so. I'll have to ask him about that, because he never really did elaborate very much on that.
Yeah. But I think that's really nice. It's really wonderful that those spirits want to help with these kind of souls also.
Yes, it's very comforting.
Okay, I was kind of going through the book a little before I called you. You do mention the ward. Do you want to talk about that? Is the ward, is that a place in the Emerald City or what?
The ward is what he has come to call the Emerald City. So I believe that they're the same thing.
The same?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
The same place. Okay. Well, let's talk about what the ward is. It sounded like it was something different.
Well, from what I understand, he has told me that these high spirits lift up the soul who's crossing over and carry them to a room in the ward. And I've asked him if he could describe one of the rooms to me, what are in the rooms, if there is a bed or a chair to sit on. And he said that we would not recognize it as anything we've ever seen before. It's just a place of unparalleled healing and opportunity, a place where the spirit is taking on new thought systems and shedding off old thought systems and really learning new things.
But I think you also said that you would not be. You I think you asked if you could see it or go there.
Yes,
and
I
he
asked
said
him
you
to
couldn't
take
be
me
allowed
there.
to do that, didn't he?
He did. I asked him if I could see this place with my own eyes, so I could write about it a little bit better than I was doing. And he said that because of the healing energies being exchanged there, I would be harmed if he were to take me there. But he did give me a couple of visions where I was able to see it in my mind and feel what it was like if I were to take my life and cross over and end up there in the ward.
What were the visions he showed you?
Well, I went through all of the emotions where I had taken my life and then just realized that what I had done was so final, and I tried to get back in my body and could not do that, and I was overwhelmed with waves of emotion knowing what my loved ones were feeling at that very moment when they found out that I was not among the living any longer. So I was allowed to feel all of the emotions that a suicide victim would feel, and I was allowed to feel much of that healing energy, much of the love that is offered there.
Mm. So that way you would know what it was like so you could write about it.
A little bit, not as much as I would have liked, but I was given just a little taste of it.
Yeah, because I know in my work they say sometimes the energies are too strong in some of these places. We couldn't experience. It'd be too much for our physical bodies.
Maybe so. I still would have liked to.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, that's our curiosity. You would always like to, even though they always know best. They know what's harmful for us, too.
You're right about that.
Mm-hmm. So can you tell a little bit more about that place, then? What goes on in that place?
Well, let me think. From what I can understand, there is like a shutting off of the five senses that we needed while we were alive, and there's a taking on of newer, expanded senses. George referred many times to an expansion of the senses that a spirit undergoes, really no matter what way you cross over into the afterlife, whether it's suicide or any other means. He has described an expansion of the senses where the spirit who has just died just is really understanding life and the universe and relationships and love and everything in a totally new way.
Okay, because I know when we're alive, we're totally cut off from that world, and we do see things in a different way, very limited.
Yes.
In our perceptions here.
Yes, he said once that one of the very first things that happens is the expansion of the senses, and he said just to describe it very briefly, our sense of vision while we're on the earth is very limited. We are limited to only what we can see with our eyes. But once the expansion of the senses has taken place, your vision is just completely different. You have unlimited vision not only with your eyes, but with new senses.
Okay. But how long do they have to stay in this place? Did he say anything about that?
He said that he had been there for 25 years, and he said that was a long time to be there, only he had stayed that long because he was looking for someone to help him write this book. And he told me that...
Okay.
He told me that they really don't count out years like we do here. They just... they are healed, and then after they're healed, they go on to help other people, other souls who are arriving, who need healing. And then many of the spirits who have been healed go on to come down to earth and help people down here, and they dedicate a certain portion of their work to helping other people who are considering suicide or comforting families who are going through the grief of suicide. So he really didn't say how long they stay there. He just said until they are healed, and that many of them want to go on and help others.
So the ones who come down and try to help the ones who are trying to commit suicide or thinking about it, and the families are those souls who have already done this, who have committed suicide.
Yes, that's what he said.
This is like an assignment or a job they're given then.
I think they take this job
right?
on themselves. I don't think it's thrust upon them.
Uh-huh. But, who would be better for it than someone who has been there, done that,
Oh, I agree.
Who knows what it's all about.
I agree completely.
Uh-huh. But did he say, did they ever get souls that they couldn't help?
No, he did not ever say that.
Or do you remember?
No, I don't believe so.
So they just keep working with them until they feel they're right to leave?
That's the impression I got, yes. He had never made any mention of souls who are not able to be helped. But I will have to ask him that. That's a good question.
Those that might be so damaged that they take longer, or something.
Yes. Well, I'll have to ask that question.
I think you gave the example in the book. What he said, one of the reasons he didn't leave the ward or the Emerald City was because it was like watching doctors, like the doctors are working on these people. To use a metaphor, they're not really doctors, they're spirits, but that type.
Right.
On ruins that were so deep.
Yes, I remember that.
Do you remember that part?
Yes, I do.
What?
He, let me think for a moment. He was saying, I asked him why he hadn't moved on from the ward yet and why he was still there. And he said, it's very difficult to remember exactly. He said that imagine how deep his wounds must have been for him to have been there that long, for 25 years, which is a very long time to go through a healing process, I imagine. But he said after watching these spirits heal him, it just gave him a real inspiration to want to do the same for others who are arriving there.
Mm-hmm. I think that was what it was. But I've had the advantage. I was just now looking through the book. But that makes sense because that's what I've found, too, that they said the spirits who help have to have a great deal of patience.
Yes.
To be able to work with these people.
Oh, I imagine.
And because, that's what I always talk to people. I see clients all the time who are on the verge of suicide. They come to my office because I'm a therapist. And they always say, if you just wait till the morning even, everything can change. Your whole attitude can change.
Well, that's very true.
If you're contemplating something like that,
Yes, he had said if you could just rise above the horizons of what you are looking at right now and just broaden your scope of vision, you would see that you're just looking at life through very narrow eyes.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's because they're just seeing what's here, but everything is a lesson. That's what I've found. Everything in life is a lesson. We're here to learn lessons. It's like going to school.
Yes,
and it's
true.
Not always easy, but that we do set this up for ourselves so we can learn something from it.
Yes, he's told me many times that the problems in life and the tragedies and calamities are just opportunities for us, if we could just see them that way.
Mm-hmm. But we get so closed off in our own little world and our own little tragedies, or what do you want to call, I call it the pity party.
Yeah.
People want to be a victim, and that's all they concentrate on is how bad the world has treated them.
Mm-hmm.
Without trying to see there is something, there's a reason for it all happening.
That's very true.
When I'm doing lectures on life after death, I always tell people everybody has something bad that happens to them in their life. That's life. That's the way life is. We're always, everybody experiences something that is bad. But then I say, did you learn anything from it? That's the key.
Yes.
No matter what it was, no matter how bad it was, did you learn anything from it? And a lot of them don't even look at it that way.
That's very helpful.
That there is a purpose behind it,
Yes.
Uh-huh. But we can't live in everybody else's life. We can't live anyone else's life. We will never know their purpose and what they came into this life to do. We'll never know their plan they came in with and their contracts, so we can't judge anybody else.
Yes, you're very right.
I think there was one part in the book, too, you were talking about that we should think of the person not as a suicide, but of how their life was. Do you remember that part?
Yes. He said that suicide does not define the person. After a person has committed suicide and the family and friends and loved ones are left here, they begin to look at that person who has taken their life as a suicide victim. And when they think of them and talk of them, they are always the suicide victim. But that is not who they were, and that is not what their life was made up of. They were a complete person, and they lived a life, and they had purpose, and they are to be remembered for who they were, but not as that final act that they committed.
Because everybody makes mistakes.
Sure, yeah.
Nobody's perfect. And that's what I try to tell people. You make a mistake, and you go on, and you say, well, hopefully I'm not going to do that again. It's whether you learned anything from it or not.
Exactly.
But everybody makes mistakes, and sometimes they'll think their life is so bad that they can't. There's no other way out except to kill themselves. But that's not the answer anyway. Because in my work, I found when you do that, you break contracts, you have had a plan, you break the contracts you set up with other people, so you disrupt a whole lot of the plans of the universe when you do that. So that's not the way you're supposed to do it.
Oh, I never thought about that.
But this is what I run into a lot.
That's very interesting.
Because we do come in with contracts we have made with other people and plans that we're hopefully going to work out. And sometimes it becomes difficult. They'll just say, well, I'm not going to do it. But you never get out of those contracts. They'll have to come back again and work on those same things. So they don't really get out of anything whenever they do commit suicide.
Oh, that's really interesting.
So he didn't talk about that part then, did he?
No, he didn't mention that.
Uh-huh. So they got to come back and do it again. Same circumstances. Next time it may even be worse. So they don't get out of it. They just realize that.
Well,
but when they're what? Go ahead.
I imagine that, and I know actually that the problems of your life, they sometimes just seem as though they're so huge. They seem unsurmountable, and you begin to confuse your life with the problems, and the problems in your mind become your whole life.
Yeah, it can become overwhelming.
Yes.
I hear somebody. Can you hear somebody talking?
No.
I thought I heard somebody talking on the line, but nobody in your house, is there?
No, there's no one here.
Just the two of us. We think there's just the two of us. Okay.
Hello,
but
George.
We never know. I have gremlins do all kinds of weird things. So. But, because when you're in the middle of something, it does become overwhelming that they can't think of anything else. And like you said, they identify with that to the point that they think that's their only way out of their problem.
Right. Right.
But see, I've been told, too, God never backs you into a corner. He never makes it to where things are unsurmountable. There will always be a way out. It may not be what the person wants or what they think, but there will always be a way out of a situation. But I guess when they get to that point, they're too confused to think about it.
Sure, I imagine so.
Mm-hmm. I was trying to think of some more things that are in the book. I know the one thing that I liked here that I was going to quote, it says, "The mystery of life is that it never ends, and the mystery of death is that it does not occur." That's what you have in your book, and I think that's very interesting.
George has told me hundreds and hundreds of times that death just does not exist as we conceive it in our minds, as we think of it.
Mm-hmm.
And he said if we could just eliminate the word death and replace it with life, every time we talk of death, we would begin to understand what it's all about. He said what we are waiting for to occur is just not going to happen because death just doesn't exist. He said there is more of life waiting for every single one of us. It's just life of another kind that we have not experienced yet. And I really think that's beautiful. It's very hopeful and it's very comforting.
It is. This is what I found in my work. But, yeah, because the person who is contemplating suicide, they'll just say, I want it to be over. I just want it to be black. I don't want it to be anything. I want to just, shut the door and everything is over and there's nothing on the other side. Everything is just done. But what they don't realize is that's not what happens.
Exactly. That does not occur. There's more of life, and they have to face it when they get there.
You can't just shut it out because it's too unpleasant. It doesn't happen that way. Like you said, life never ends. It's just life in another form.
Mm-hmm.
And they go into that other form. So it's a continuous thing. You can make it as easy or as hard as you want.
I imagine so.
But I've had people come into my office and sit there and they'll tell me, well, when I leave here, I'm going to commit suicide. They said, I've tried everything else. If this doesn't work, this is it. And that puts a great deal of responsibility and pressure on a therapist, believe me.
I guess it would.
But, no, I've had people, one man sat down there and he said he hated his job so much he wanted to commit suicide. And I said, no job is worth that. You can always find another job. But he was serious. He said he felt trapped. There was no way out. I guess it's the money, the family, or whatever it is, and they really feel backed into a corner.
Mm-hmm.
But that is really a shame when they come to that point that, something material like that can pressure them to the point they want to take their own life.
Yes, that is very sad.
That's the only way to get out of it, because you can always get another job. It may not be as much money. It may end up being better in the long run.
Mm-hmm.
But I had one client, and, everybody listening to the show knows that I do past life regression, and that's what, hypnosis. And he's one that told me he was going to commit suicide when he left. But when we had the session, he went back through 3 lifetimes before this. Each lifetime he had committed suicide. And it didn't solve the problem. He just came back again, and one time he was a man, one time he was a woman, but each time a little different situation, but he didn't get out of the main thing.
Oh, that is
He was with the same people, the people were just, different roles playing, just like a stage play, but he didn't get out of anything. It was the same thing over and over. So he was laying there in trance and he was crying, and he said, I didn't get out of anything. I'm doing the same thing all over again. So at least it made him come to that realization he wasn't going to get out of anything because he was shown he was in a rut, a pattern of doing the same thing over and over again. And it's about time he looked at it a different way and broke that pattern. But that's what people don't realize. It can go back several times, lifetimes. But we do make a contract with these people. Okay, now let's try it again. Let's see if we can do it right this time.
Oh, I didn't realize that. That's very interesting.
This is why in some of the books I've written about, anyway. There's a whole lot more to this than people think there is.
Mm-hmm.
It's a whole bigger picture here. But that's why I think your book is important, because it comes from somebody who's been there and he's trying to help people by getting the information across.
Yes. Yes, he's very passionate
How
about
long
that.
did the communication, what?
He's very passionate about that, getting that information to people.
Uh-huh. How long did your communication take place with George?
He communicated with me for almost 6 months about the book, and then that communication with him ended, and my husband and myself and my children moved here to Missouri shortly after I finished writing that book, and immediately after we moved here, my husband got sick with cancer, and he was told he only had a couple of months to live, and George began communicating with me again at that time, and he was very, very comforting to me, and he just brought me a tremendous amount of hope during that time, and he's still communicating with me.
It was all happening at the same time then.
Yes, it was.
What do you mean? While you were going through an emotional time in your own life?
Yes, it was very difficult, and he just every day he would come and tell me that I was just swimming in a sea of opportunities because of all of these things that were happening, and he kept reminding me not to look at them as tragedies, but as great opportunities for personal character growth and ways to teach my children about life and death and love. And he was just very, very comforting to me during that time.
Mm-hmm. So it definitely had a dual purpose in this way.
Yes, I think so.
Do you think it would have been more difficult when your husband was sick and dying if this hadn't been occurring at the same time?
Oh, absolutely. I don't know how I would have gotten through it, because I would not have been looking at his death as though it were an opportunity, because who looks at things like that as opportunities? But because I was able to look at it in a positive light, we were just, it made it very much easier to go through.
So, and that's probably why it all happened then. In this way, George was rather like a guardian angel, a guide.
Yes, he was.
You know, like he was assigned to help you.
Well, I never thought about it like that, but I imagine you're right.
Because you said sometimes they're assigned to help the families of suicide victims, but maybe in this way he was assigned to help you because your husband was going to cross over.
I never thought about it that way, but I believe you're right.
Uh-huh.
And he still talks to me.
So he served a very important function in many ways, really.
Yes, his presence in our lives is just incredible, and still is.
Was your husband able to read the manuscript before he died?
No, he wasn't. He had a brain tumor that just completely took over his entire brain, and he was not able to think or talk. It took his vision. It just pretty much took all of his motor skills. Mm. But fortunately, it happened very quickly. I'm sorry?
He wasn't really aware of what you were involved with then?
No, not at all.
If that would have been very difficult for you if you hadn't had something else going on.
I think so.
But was he in a hospital when it happened?
I took care of him at home. I kept him at home and took care of him for as long as I possibly could until his doctor physically came and took him away. He said, "You can't do this anymore," and they took him to a nursing home. And which was actually good because we were able to spend more time just holding his hand instead of waiting on him 24 hours a day. Yeah. We were able to just sit with him.
And so it was during that time that you were having the communication with George, too?
Yes.
Uh-huh.
During that time, he came and talked to me every single night, every night, sometimes in the mornings also, which was rare for him.
Well, let me see. I want to get a little time sequence here because I think this is important in your life, too. When he first communicated, you said that first night, was your husband sick yet at that time or not?
No, he wasn't. But I didn't share this with him because I didn't know if he would accept it or reject it, so I just kind of kept it to myself during that whole time that I was working on the book.
Very personal.
Yes.
But then he became sick right after that, or what?
Yes, just immediately after we had finished writing the book, just within about 2 weeks after that, we found out he was sick.
That's when he got sick?
Yes.
You know, they always say everything happens at its own time. There's always a reason.
I believe that.
So it's a different, it's a universal timetable, God's timetable, however you want to call it. But it was especially being orchestrated to help you. That's very obvious anyway.
Well, it wasn't obvious to me until you said that, and now it is. One of George's
because you
favorite
could have very easily just refused. You said, I've got enough on my plate. I don't need this, too.
Oh, I did refuse. I refused for several hours, but then I gave in.
Okay. Well, see, I've gone through the same thing. That's why I'm into the work I'm doing.
Oh.
Because when my husband died, I was getting into all of this, and so, it's all for a reason.
Yes.
We go in a different way. And I think if all that hadn't been there for me, I would have reacted in a different way also. That's why I can relate to this. That's why I was curious about that.
Oh, that's interesting.
But before that, you'd never, I guess, heard voices or saw spirits or anything?
No, I never did before that. And since then, since George has come to visit me, I have had visits with every single member of my family who has passed away.
Oh.
Which is really, really wonderful for me. But before George began speaking to me, this has never happened to me.
He kind of opened the door.
I guess you could say that.
To help you let the other ones in, I guess,
I don't know. I can't explain it.
But do they also come at night or what?
Yes. Almost always they come at night. My days are very busy because I homeschool my children, and at night it's very peaceful for me, which maybe is the reason they come at nighttime.
Mm-hmm. Well, do they tell you things when they come?
Yes. Most of the time they tell me what kind of work they're involved in. Every one of them seems to have some kind of work that is going on. My father tells me that he works with people on Earth who are emotionally void, is how he explained it to me. And my grandmother tells me that she works with children down here on the Earth. And all of my relatives describe this work that they're doing, which seems very fulfilling.
People who are void, I wonder if that means, you said emotionally void?
That's what he said, emotionally void.
Is that what you said?
Yeah.
I wonder if that means they don't have emotions or what?
That's what I understand. That's been my understanding. When I ask too many questions, they get frustrated and they tell me that their purpose in coming to see me is not to answer all of my curious questions, but I can't resist.
Yeah. Well, they've told me before that all of your questions will never be answered because some knowledge is as poison rather than medicine. Oh. In other words, you won't understand it, so they just give us what we can handle at a certain time.
Oh, I like that.
But I think that's beautiful that they still do have contact with you.
Yes, it's wonderful.
And, this way there's another side over there.
Yes. Yes, I'm very excited to find out what's going on over there, what's going to happen when I get there. I'm not in a hurry, but I'm very
We don't have any choice. We're all going to get there eventually.
Yes.
No matter if they're atheists or what, they're eventually going to get there because we have to get out of the body.
That's so true.
But have your husband ever come to visit you at night either?
Yes. I visited with my husband maybe 5 or 6 times, and he is a completely different person than he was in life. He is healed, of course, which was the first thing I noticed, was that he was not sick anymore. Which he said, well, of course, I don't have a physical body anymore. But when he was alive, he was very depressed, and he had very low self-esteem, and he was not a happy person, and he is just beamingly happy now when I see him. It's very hard to recognize him because he's just so different.
Yeah, that's what I tell people. When I wrote a book about life after death, is that once you're out of the body, all of that is left with the body, with the physical, because you're not a physical anymore.
Right.
And you don't carry any of that, the pain, the experiences, you don't carry any of it with you. It's just like it's all washed away once you're out of the body. But of course, that's a normal death.
Mm-hmm.
But he's looking at things differently now then.
Yes. I think I always knew that you didn't carry on the physical body, but just knowing that he left all of that sickness behind was just amazing to me.
Yeah, because there is no pain once you leave the body.
Right.
We don't even carry any of that with us. It's always for a reason, but that's what we don't understand when we're over here. Did he say what his job is now that he's over there?
He is actually the only spirit that has come to visit me that has told me he is not working. And in life, in the 12 years that we were married, he did not work very often. I think he only held one short job. And he has told me that nothing is required of him, which I thought was really, really funny, because it would be just what he would say. But he's the only one. I imagine sooner or later he will be doing something. But he's not right now. He told me he's contemplating the mysteries of life, and he is just reflecting on life and looking ahead at newer life.
Okay, because that's the thing. Sometimes they go into a place I've found called a resting place, and I think that's different than the place you described.
Oh.
If they've had an illness or a traumatic death, sometimes they go into a resting place where nothing is required for a while.
Oh, that is
until they're ready to start getting on the wheel of karma again and coming back.
Mm-hmm.
But one thing, it sounds like he's probably, communicating with you to make sure you're okay for a while.
Yes, he told me that he never leaves us. Me and my kids, he said he is with us every second, which is a really good feeling.
Sometimes they're assigned to be a guide or a guardian angel. Maybe that's his job this time. Who's to say?
I don't know.
But you're more aware of it than the average person would be anyway.
I'm becoming more aware of it all the time.
That's wonderful, because you know it's real then.
Yes.
That's why I think you can really help a lot with this, telling people these things. You know, humans get so bogged down in we call it the muck and the mire. They get stuck in stuff, and they don't really see what's out there. The world is such a beautiful place if they only look around and see people, and there's so much love if they would just look at it.
Yes. I agree.
Okay, well, we're coming to the time to stop. See, I told you that hour would go fast, didn't I?
It did go
fast. Okay. If anybody wanted to contact you or email you or reach you, do you want them to do it?
Oh, sure. That would be great.
Because sometimes my authors say no, they don't want to. They want to go through the company.
Oh, absolutely.
But if you do, you want to tell people out there how they can get a hold of you.
Yes.
Contact you.
How about my email?
Okay, give them out your email.
Okay, that would be Peebles, Peebles, 4, just the number 4, at hotmail.com.
Okay, that's different than the one I have.
Oh, I have.
Do you want to repeat that again?
Yes. Peebles 4, Peebles 4, at hotmail.com.
The number 4 after Peebles.
Yes.
Okay, Peebles and number 4 at hotmail.com. So if they have any questions, because I get lots of emails and mail that just, they're so emotional and they really tear you apart. So you may get some like that, and you're going to have to answer it.
I welcome them.
That's your new job, your new assignment.
I have no problem with that. I welcome them.
Okay. All right, so we're coming to the end of the time here. So Karen will be one of our speakers at the Transformation Conference next month, June 12th to the 14th in Bentonville, Arkansas. It's going to be at the Clarion Inn out by the airport. If anyone wants any information about the conference, to go on our website. Everything is there. And the website is, name of my company is Ozark Mountain Publishing, so it's abbreviated. It's OZARKMT.com. Or if you're overseas, it's OZARKMT.com. And if you want to get a hold of her through us, we can also put you in touch. But if anybody wants to know anything about the conference, contact the website or call our toll-free number. It's 1-800-935-0045. 1-800-935-0045. And we'll do everything we can to answer your questions. Okay, Karen, it's not going to be long, and I'll be seeing you in person.
I'm looking forward to that.
Okay. All right, so we'll be seeing you next month. So I'm signing off now, and I'm saying goodnight to everybody.
If you enjoyed the show, check out more of our other videos, and be sure to subscribe and click the like button. Thank you for listening to the Metaphysical Hour with Dolores Cannon.